Is it a competition worthy of creating its proposed champions of the world? Is it just an extension of pre-season? Or is it just more football in a time where the players should really be resting? Let's have a little chat about it. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. So the Club World Cup is over, the dust has started to settle, and Chelsea have walked out 3-0 winners against Paris Saint-Germain, the best team in the world, and it was an unbelievable spectacle, I will not lie. But outside of just my vision of the competition through the lens of a Chelsea fan, I would like to look at the whole thing in isolation and just talk about what I really think of the Club World Cup. It's easy to come out as winners and say, yeah, it's brilliant, do you know what I mean, whatever, but I'm going to try and be objective, and we're going to talk about the positive and negatives, the pros and cons, if you will, of the Club World Cup, and try to answer the question, was it good? So for your TLDR, yes, I do think it was good. I think it's got a long way to go in terms of capturing the hearts of the world, which is ostensibly what it's there to do. But I do think there are definitely some things there that show you that this competition can definitely be amazing, especially in the future. But there are also some quite obvious negatives about it and some things that really still need to be worked on in order to get it anywhere close to the level of something like the Champions League or the World Cup, which essentially is what it's trying to be a mix of, right? So we'll start out with the positives, and there are a reasonable amount of them, so let's get into it. So the first one is team variety, right? I think that one kind of speaks for itself. Like, as a Chelsea fan in particular, as a European football fan, how often do you get to see your teams go up against someone like a Brazilian team or a Tunisian team or even a Saudi Arabian team or an American team outside of something like pre-season? And the thing about pre-seasons is they're not competitive football, are they? Pre-season is an opportunity to give some players a rest if they've had a heavy season, check out some of your academy stars and try out some of your new signings, and it's a time for your manager to experiment with new formations and new ideas and try and start to build familiarity with your team and between your new members leading up to the current season. So in that respect, when you normally come up against the likes of an LA Galaxy or a Palmeiras, they might put out their first team because for them it might feel like a big event, or they haven't spent as much, or a lot of it comes down to the broadcasting of it as well, right? But when it comes to the big European teams, we often put out weakened sides. And there's lots of reasons for that. You know, we want to be careful, you know, for instance, Cole Palmer, right? Cole Palmer, if he's just played a whole season and you're playing like Seattle Sounders in a preseason game, you're not necessarily going to put Cole Palmer out because you don't want him to risk getting injured. And as well, you want to use the opportunity to try new things. Bar the Esperance game, which was the only side that we really threw out a rotated team, there was an attempt in every single one of these matches to put out our strongest starting 11. And that makes the games competitive, and as a viewer, as a casual viewer, or whether you're actually supporting one of the teams, it makes them more fun to watch. It's nice to come up against these teams and not just play them for the sake of playing them and, you know, have a load of kids out there or something like that. It's nice to come up and compete against the American teams and compete against the Brazilian teams and see what the occasion is like when there's a bit more going on and there's a bit more on the line than just, oh, it's a preseason game, it's a friendly, and it doesn't matter. There's never any conversation about winning a preseason tournament and adding that into your trophy cabinet, for instance. It's just not a thing, is it? So yeah, for me, one of the huge positives off the bat about the Club World Cup is the opportunity to play teams from around the world with occasion attached to it. And that's, you know, that's one of the things that made this competition really special. The second thing is not very fun, but it's the prize money, right? Oh man, like, so Chelsea are walking away with $120 million, which is probably somewhere around 80 or 90 million pounds for playing in this competition over the space of a month. That is literally the equivalent to what you might make in a Champions League season if you get through to the final stages in an entire season. And also it gives a lot of these other slightly lesser known teams, like I say, like your American teams and your Brazilian teams, it really gives them something to punch for, right? Because we all know that the Premier League is one of the richest leagues in the entire world. And we also know that your winner of your Premier League is getting somewhere like 120, 130 mil for winning the Premier League. And you get like 100 mil or close to it just for being relegated. So for these other teams that don't have that financial backing and that possibility to go for something like this, there's a real prize on the line as well. And, you know, that's amazing for us because now that's going to help us out of our jam that we're in with UEFA, and it's going to help us add a few more names to the squad. But just imagine if Flamengo would have won this competition. That 100 mil, that helps them start to regenerate their stadium and their training equipment, and that's a real serious amount of money that a club with less financial means and less financial backing, if they win this, they can do a lot with that. This is a strange one, but RefCam, right? RefCam is cool. I think it's a bit weird because compared to how pristine and clean all of the the production and the camera work is in this. Ref cam kind of looks like someone's running on the pitch with an iPhone. Do you know what I mean? I'm not really sure how they get around that. I thought generally if you had something like a GoPro, for instance, that the quality could be pretty clear. But maybe it's something about broadcasting it directly and whatever. I'm not really sure, but I'm sure they'll figure that out in the future. But the concept of it is really, really cool, right? There was only one moment where I was like, oh, maybe this isn't a good time for ref cam, and it's when Moises Caicedo had kind of got a pretty rash challenge on him, and he was on the floor and he was looking in a lot of pain, and the ref ran straight up to him and like leant over him, and you just got this shot square in the face of Moises Caicedo being like, "Rah!" That felt a little bit intrusive at that time. But in general, getting to see what the ref saw in in a contested moment where it's like a foul or a tackle that maybe has gone a bit awry, or a goal or something like that, getting to see that perspective from where the ref is actually really cool insight into a game, and I think it's something that we should be looking to implement across the board. So, ref cam is cool. Nice one. I'm pretty sure this is a positive. I've put it in the positive category. This tournament is only going to happen every 4 years. So that will really help build the sense of occasion, right? Because of the way that this tournament feels like it's kind of been dumped at the end of this season, and there was a lot of debate and questions about why are Chelsea in it and why aren't Liverpool in it, and do you know what I mean? There was obviously stuff like that. But now, over the next 4 years, people are going to be paying more attention to, they're going to get in the Club World Cup because they've managed this and this and this, and they've managed this level of success and all that kind of thing. So I think that's good in terms of like the occasion. Obviously, there being such a gap in between it means that it's a bit more special, right? Because it doesn't happen all the time. Kind of like a World Cup or a Euros, obviously nowhere near the same level because that's international. But just in terms of how special the occasion can be, we're going to have now 4 years of build-up, thinking in the back of our minds for the next few years, this all plays into another Club World Cup campaign. And, it's happened now. It's there, it exists. So I think that build-up time is going to make it quite special next time as well. The other good thing about it being every 4 years and not every 2 is obviously player welfare, right? That's a huge thing. It's one of the really strange things about this tournament. So, for instance, the South American teams and the American teams, the MLS teams, they're mid-season of their domestic leagues right now in this competition. So that is a totally different thing to the European side who are at the end of their seasons, right? At the end of the day, it adds more games in for everyone, which is a little bit of a worry regardless of what point in your season you're in. But I would say it's a bit worse for the European side, isn't it? Because it's a big conversation that's going to be had about the PSG team who lost to Chelsea yesterday. They've played so many games. They won the Champions League, and was part of it just that was one game too many and that they were cooked. And you have to say it was kind of looking the same for some of the Chelsea players as well. We were really lucky to have brought in people like Liam Delap and João Pedro, who, despite having full seasons with their clubs or whatever, didn't have all these extra competitions and have ultimately played less games over the season, so had a bit more fuel in the tank. So yeah, initially I thought this might have been every 2 years, and I remember thinking, I was like, so footballers are just never ever going to get a break ever again. But no, there is some brief respite that once every 4 years, players are going to actually get a break. So it's a weird one. It's a positive, but juxtaposed against the kind of negative that it is a bit dangerous to just be consistently having more football, especially in these kind of conditions, but we'll get onto that in a little bit. But yeah, I'm ultimately glad it's every 4 years and not every 2. I think that builds a sense of occasion and is going to be a bit better for the players. Just a quick side note, I did realise when I was just talking about the 4 years thing, I'm going to be 40 the next time this comes around. That's mental. I've just turned 36, and the next time, I assume that Chelsea will get in to the next Club World Cup regardless of league performance because we won this one. I don't really know how that works, but I guess we'll find out about that later. But yeah, I'm going to be 40 years old when that happens, man. That's a bit mad, isn't it? Hopefully I've got a few more subscribers by then. Click that button. The other thing that I think is really good about this is it's given something to America in terms of club football, and it's shown the rest of us how passionate they are becoming about it. So this is juxtaposed with something I will talk about a little bit in the negatives, which is some of the games were a bit empty. But in general, there were massive turnouts for a lot of these teams, man, and especially teams like PSG and Real Madrid and the South American teams as well. Obviously, it's right on the doorstep of South America, isn't it? So it was an opportunity for the fans of those teams, like your Brazilian sides, to come out in force and show their support for their clubs on a massive stage, being shown to everyone in the world. And I do think ultimately, like, I am for America becoming a bigger part of football. There are some things that I'm not super keen on the way that they do, but the concept of America becoming a bigger part of football is only a good thing. What I really hope it culminates in is that they grow the MLS, right? That the MLS becomes a more interesting league to watch. You know, if the MLS could become anything like the Premier League, then that is just more good, high-level football for you to watch, isn't it? And I think it's really promising to see the amount, and it's not even just in the stadiums, right? It's, you know, Troy Deeney was there outside the ground interviewing Chelsea fans about how they thought the game would go. Do you know what I mean? And these guys are really, really super passionate. They're getting involved. They know about their teams. And I think sometimes in England we can be a little bit snitty, can't we, about American fans because it's our sport, and you know. But ultimately, football is an international sport. It's the world sport, and the fact that America are embracing that, I think, is a really great thing. And for me, it was really good to see some really massive turnouts. Like the final had 80,000 people there, man. That's a World Cup game. Do you know what I mean? That's one of your biggest games in the Prem. There were so many people there, so much support, and so many people enjoyed the occasion that I think it's positive that we are seeing America grow into football, not just through the things like the MLS, but, you know, by hosting this competition in general and giving a platform for all of their fans to go and support these teams in person, I think is ultimately a good thing. And as a UK fan, the last thing I'll talk about in the positives is it was free to watch in the UK, right? If you're from the UK and you watch football, you know how expensive it is. I used to work in a shop that sold internet and TV packages, right? And if you wanted internet and TV and you wanted all of the football, and you've got to get Sky and you've got to get BT Sport, or you've got to do something crazy through Virgin, you're looking at paying like £100+ a month for your entire package, and 70% of that, if not more, is generated just by the football. So I know a couple of guys that live abroad. It is really cheap to watch football in lots of other countries. Do you know what I mean? And in America as well, I think watching the Premier League is nowhere near as expensive as it is as watching it in the UK. So as a UK fan, having the opportunity to watch this tournament without being fleeced for it, which is what it feels like a lot of the time as a football fan, was really, really good. But yeah, ultimately, as an English football fan, I really was just happy that there was an option for me to just log into an app, put this on my big TV, sit and enjoy the game with a beer, and just, it was all just fine. Do you know what I mean? It was all just fine. I didn't have to be like, oh, this is going to cost me loads. I'd really love football and I want to follow Chelsea, especially as a content creator, right? I've only just started getting into content creation, but long term, if I want to carry this on, football is, you know, watching football is going to be quite a big expense that, you know, and I'm not making any money from this yet. So when I am, that'll be fine. But until then, that's going to have to come out of my pocket. So to do something like this and just be able to do it for free and really get involved for no extra cost, that's a big win for me. So, in my list that I've made, there are generally more positives than there are negatives about the Club World Cup, right? But there are some negatives, and some of these are personal, some of these are going to be universal that I think most people will agree with. Some of them are going to be things that I'm just not a fan of, and, you know, maybe I have to get my head around that and just see how the game is changing in general. But let's talk about what I didn't like about the Club World Cup. So, I'm just going to start with the presentation, right? And when I say that, I don't just mean any one body. I'm talking about the way that it was presented in the stadiums, in person, in America. And I am also talking about the way it was presented digitally to me by DAZN. And like I just said, I'm obviously very grateful I was able to watch it for free. But there are just some things, some little nichey, nuancey things that I want to get into that kept taking me out of the moment. And that is hurt the experience a little bit from a viewer's perspective. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is advertising, right? So this wasn't like the worst thing in the world, but it was just annoying, man. It was just annoying. So watching it on DAZN. Now, some games are on Channel 5, and that probably wasn't as bad, but I watched almost all of the games that I watched through the DAZN app, either on my computer or on the TV. And I do not like how they take any perceived break in play at all, to shrink the screen and throw an advert at you. And that advert might be about the boxing or this or that or the other. And ultimately, it just irritated me a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Where we're literally talking about moments like there's a free kick, and they're getting in position to take the free kick. Now, as long as I've watched football, little moments like that are all part of it. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it builds tension. It's not just like, I'm not just bored the second that they're not playing and the play isn't happening and they're kicking around. I'm invested in every single second. I like to see how the players, they huddle and talk to each other, and you see who's lining up for the free kick and who might dummy it. And do you know what I mean? There's all these little bits of tension, and it's all just part of it for me. Do you know what I mean? So for every single moment like that, whether it was cooling break or a free kick or there was a penalty given or someone was arguing with the ref or any little break in play at all was used as an opportunity to put an advert on the screen. And okay, it was free. Maybe you don't get that if you pay for the premium DAZN thing, right? Just that level of advertising in football in the middle of the game. It's one thing, it's halftime, and there's already adverts all around the stadium. Do you know what I mean? There's banners everywhere, and advertising is a huge part of football. Everyone's sponsored by someone on their shirt, and it's all ultimately in order to try and get you to buy something, for sure. But it just kept taking me out at the moment, man, and I'll move on from it now. But that one, that I found that quite irritating. And like I say, maybe that is not a thing if you pay for the premium package. Do you know what I mean? So I am going to move on to how the competition was actually presented in real time at the stadiums by the competition itself in America. All these things I'm talking about, and for the most part, it is my opinion as an English football fan watching a competition that's been held in America. But obviously a lot of these things make you think, is this what the World Cup's going to be like as well? So I just want to get into some of the little details about how the competition was presented in real time at the stadiums, and how I don't think it's necessary. I don't think you need that. And I actually just think, if anything, you start to take away a little bit from what makes the sport so good. So in general, for my tastes, there was just too much pageantry, right? There was too much pageantry. For instance, the game started late, yesterday. Kickoff is kickoff, right? And if there's something that happens that delays kickoff, fair enough. But that wasn't really what happened yesterday. There was just so much pageantry. It was like the Super Bowl. Do you know what I mean? In we had a performance from Robbie Williams and the American national anthem being sung before the game. It's like we watch the Champions League every year, man. It's like, when do we ever hear the national anthem of the host country for the final? Like, you just don't. It was kind of America being like, this is America. We want to show the world what we're about. And I understand that, that's kind of what they're going for. But there was like a few musical performances before the game. There was like 3 or 4 musical performances in halftime, like the halftime show. Not really for me, man. Do you know what I mean? I'm old school. I just want to hear the pundits talking about what's going on in the game, what they're seeing, and get their kind of analysis on it. I don't really think halftime interviews are a good thing either, especially in a final. And Mark Cucurella did it yesterday, and I'm like, man, he wants to be in the changing room with his team, getting instruction from the manager and talking to him about how they see out this game. And instead they're bringing him out to, sort of talk to everyone in halftime, and he doesn't want to be there, man. The players don't want to be there. So just you just don't need to do it. One thing I just found wild from every single game was like the WWE style walkouts that they make all the players do. Do you know what I mean? There's music in the background, and they, instead of just having all of the players walk out in a line like they usually do, they made the players come out one by one. So 22 players come out one by one and have their names announced on the speakers, and get a massive roar from the crowd for every single one, like it was a wrestling match or something, man. Do you know what I mean? If that sort of thing continues, like every single player is going to have their own theme tune, it's literally just going to be like wrestling, isn't it? I don't know, man. Like I say, I think a lot of this probably falls down to my opinion of it, but I just don't think that is what football is about. And I don't do that at the World Cup, man. Do you know what I mean? Don't do that at the World Cup. Just, focus on the football. Let football be what it will be. So I would only hope that more people like myself, and maybe more American people, I'm not sure, because maybe, like I say, in America, maybe this is really commonplace, even in football, and this is just something that everyone wants to see. But I hope by either the World Cup, or at least the next time the Club World Cup rolls around, we can roll back on some of this pageantry and just try to let the competition be about football, and pretty much only about football, bar a few different examples. It's all really little nitpicky things, right? I spent the first half of this video talking about how there were so many amazing things about it, and there really, really are. This is just my opinion as a viewer about how I like to consume football, and maybe that is completely rooted in the fact that I'm English and I'm used to it being a certain way, but I would be really interested to find out some of your opinions as well. Are you from the UK? Do you agree or disagree with me? Are you not from the UK? And do you like the extra pageantry that America has offered the Club World Cup this year? Let's have a chat about it in the comments. Maybe I'm just being a back in my day kind of old man now because I'm 36 and I'm getting on or whatever. But yeah, let's have a chat about it, guys. I'd love to know what you think. So the next few things I think are less opinion and more tangible issues and negatives about the Club World Cup being specifically in America. What I don't know is the next one going to be in America? Is the Club World Cup now going to be an American thing? Or are we looking at Saudi or Qatar, or could the UK host it at some point? Could another European country like a Spain or an Italy or a France, or, you know, obviously it's a world competition, right? So you would have thought that, you know, maybe it can be anywhere in the world. But what I'm going to talk about specifically is things that we just need to be careful of wherever it is hosted. And like I say, I think these are tangible problems that need to be considered in these kind of competitions. So it's a simple one, but the weather, right? The weather, it's so hot. Cooling breaks, okay, are a thing. That's kind of good. But we're not even just talking about the heat. Enzo Fernandez came out a few days ago and was like, playing in 34-degree heat is not really feasible long term. Do you know what I mean? So this kind of thing needs to be thought about and understood. And maybe it comes to something like they close off the stadiums and, you know, amp up the aircon. I've got no idea. But the meteorological conditions need to be considered as a real thing in these competitions, because these guys are at the end of a season. There's something else I'll get to in a minute. And playing in these extreme sort of conditions is going to be so difficult. And the other thing is like the example we had in the Benfica game, right? Now, I understand the likelihood of things like this happening en masse are obviously very small, but they exist. And let's juxtapose this pertaining to the World Cup, right? What happens if England is playing France and there is a lightning storm like there was in the Chelsea-Benfica game, and there's a 2-hour gap? Are you asking teams of international professionals who are concerned about having a big break and then having to go out and play fast and furious football, which significantly raises the opportunity for injury? Is like, can we do that? Is that really a thing? Maybe it was a case of, oh, it's probably not going to happen, the likelihood, so that's kind of, you know, why we've been having the competitions in these places. But these are real things that we need to think about, aren't they? And it's not just like the Club World Cup. Like I say, the World Cup is next year and it's going to be in the same place at the same time. And like I say, it's about the player welfare as well, man. It's about the player welfare. It is ostensibly dangerous, right? If not handled absolutely correctly. You know, if there's anything like 10 to 20 minutes left of a game and there's a 2-hour gap in between, that significantly raises the possibility for injury. It's difficult to blame. I'm not blaming America for their weather. Do you know what I mean? I just think that possibilities like that need to be considered more. And maybe there are some places that we just shouldn't host these competitions if that kind of thing is likely to happen. Not the whole country, just certain cities, right, that have a pre-dereliction towards these kind of meteorological issues. So I've talked about it a little bit just then. Injuries, the potential for injuries is a problem, and I'm going to kind of combine these last two negatives because they are all kind of part of the same picture. The biggest negative as a European football fan is the placement at the end of the season, right? I understand now we are playing more and more football than ever. Football has become this absolutely huge, massive business, and in order to keep the beast going, we've got to keep kicking out more football matches. What hasn't happened yet is, although it looks like Chelsea might be trying to do it, squad sizes haven't expanded to a level that would kind of incorporate all of this extra football that's going to go on. And what could end up happening if we carry on adding all of these football matches, especially at the end of seasons like this, is we might end up with a lot of teams doing something similar to what Chelsea did last year. So last year, Enzo Maresca's first season, we are in the Conference League. We essentially have an A team and a B team, right? And, you know, that's not completely unheard of because obviously like there's rotation is already a thing. But to have a team that plays one competition and a team that plays another competition, that shows you that there's just almost too much football going on. You can't, like Pep Guardiola keeps talking about recently, oh, I like to have a trim squad of 22 players and working with a bloated squad makes it more difficult. But we keep on adding all of these extra games, man. And the thing about this as well is not only is it more games, it's more games in a format the players aren't used to. It's a short burst of 6 to 7 games or whatever that's really, really, really intense, and the pressure ramps up throughout the competition. And okay, so for the Brazilian teams, maybe it's a bit different, the South American teams and the American teams and stuff, because they're mid-season. they're already kind of fit and into the swing of it, and they've still got a lot more gas in the tank because they haven't played so much football in the last year. But for the European teams, their season for most of them had just ended. So you bring in your PSGs, your Atletico Madrid. So I was speaking to my friend Quentin from Red and Blue. He's the PSG fan. He said that when they played Atletico Madrid, he said he didn't think they were taking the competition seriously. And he said that they just kind of put out a rotated side and they got absolutely battered. So they were kind of treating it like, we're not taking this seriously. And maybe that was because even though the money's really good and the event and the spectacle was cool, they can't afford to risk losing their players for the next season. Now, I'm not saying that they haven't thought about player welfare. Of course they have. And at the end of the day, there weren't a slew of injuries across the board. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, you know, I probably should have started with the negatives and ended on the positives, shouldn't I? Because there were so many positives, man. Ultimately, I am coming away from the Club World Cup. I've had a really, really good time. I've watched lots of good football. I've seen great goals. I've seen passion. I've seen drama. Little bit of hair pulling. And for me as a Chelsea fan, because my team was in this competition, I've come away with it and been like, yeah, that was cool. Bring on the next one. Now, I completely understand the opinion and banter from the fans who are just like, yeah, it's a Mickey Mouse competition. And do you know what? I think any team that wasn't in it is going to say that, aren't they? And it's not a jealousy thing. It's not a jealousy thing. They don't feel like they're missing out. Because I genuinely, at the beginning of this competition, was like, I wouldn't mind if we were in it or not. If we get knocked out early, that's not necessarily a bad thing. So I don't think this is other fans looking outward and to the inside being like, God, I really wish we were in it, because they don't. Do you know what I mean? They absolutely don't. And they're absolutely right not to. Their players get a break, they have their pre-season, and they warm up to the next season as usual. But from being inside the competition and just seeing how heated the game against PSG and Chelsea got yesterday, that was like a real proper football match, man. It was competitive. It was like watching a Champions League game. It was like watching, not exactly the same, because obviously it doesn't mean the same thing, but it was akin to watching something like a Champions League final. It was a lot more engaging and a lot more engrossing than the Conference League final was. No disrespect to Real Betis, but I think that the Club World Cup is a better competition. So like I say, now there's been one, I think if your team's in it, you're going to be up for it. And I think if your team's not in it, then you're just not going to be bothered. And I don't even think that's a bad thing. I think the debate will go on for a long time, decades probably, about whether this trophy is worth winning or not. And we'll have to see how that one comes out, right? We'll have to see how that one comes out. But for that, I'm going to leave it there. My voice is still a little bit hoarse from yesterday because I got pretty into it. My match review was very passionately driven. Go and check that out if you haven't seen it already. Like, share and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. That's the end of that. Up next, the transfer window, pre-season, and then we'll start seeing how next year is going to look, and I can't wait to get into it with you. I hope you guys are having a wicked day, and I will catch up with you very soon. Peace.